Here's a few things that you need to know if you own an X350 stunt quadcopter. Um, First off, I did a video on the transmitter, so um, you can look in my videos and find that if you want. But here's something kind of interesting. Okay, when you bind this quadcopter, you definitely want to turn on the transmitter first and give it a second to, you know, figure out what it's doing. Then you want to plug your quadcopter in. Now, these switches, this one right here, as you know, puts you, if you push it down, the light on the back quadcopter goes from green to red, and that means you're in 3G mode. Okay, if you bind your quadcopter, if you turn on the transmitter with this in the 3G mode, you're going to obviously bind it, the quadcopter, to the 3G. 3G is you lose 3 axes of stabilization, so that's where you do your stunts and things like that. Now, if you move this up after the fact, it still remains in 3G. It just sort of makes this switch no longer work. And so if you want to be able to switch from 6G to 3G, and then this switch to 3D, which is inverted flying, you have to start out with all the switches up, except this one. This right shoulder button is your throttle cutoff, and you want to start it in the forward position. Once it's bound and you're showing you know, green on the light, which is 6G, the highest stabilization mode you can get, you know, then you turn this switch forward and you give it a little bit of throttle and away it goes. But, you know, like I said, make sure these switches are in the proper modes. I bound mine in the wrong, with these in the wrong position, and I didn't realize it. I was in inverted flight, and oh my gosh, it was, well, it didn't work out well, let's put it that way. So once again, just real quick, make sure all your switches are up except this shoulder button, which is your throttle cutoff. Make sure the throttle is down. Then you want to turn on the radio. You let the radio settle in for a minute. Then you plug in your quadcopter and you close the door. Now, as far as the battery door on this, has a very, very cheap hinge right here. You'll always see videos where the battery door flies open. You can put a Velcro strap on there if you want, but you know, if you close it properly, you close it like this and you go, okay, it's closed. Well, guess what? It isn't. Listen, click, you know, now, and then you wiggle it back and forth because it's not stable here. So you have to make sure that you do that extra push on there, wiggle it back and forth, and make sure it's locked. And if you don't, you're in trouble. Now, if you start the quadcopter in the wrong mode, it's going to have a red and green and on and that sort of thing. Well, there's an override button, that little white button. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little white button, and you push that and it will bind. I would recommend that you don't push that and bind it, because it's going to bind to whatever oddball thing you've got it locked into. So what I would do is just, if it's red and green on the back and doesn't bind, just shut the whole thing down, unplug the battery, turn the transmitter off, and then start the sequence all over again. So basically that's my tips for today on this. And just go over things, make sure this is pushed up and it's locked into place. You know, I would really not use that little white button in there to bind it. I would start the process all over, and the process goes throttle down, all the switches up except for this one right here. This is the throttle cutoff button. All the switches in a forward position or rear position, and the right shoulder in toward you, forward position. Then turn it on. Let it settle for a second. At that point in time, plug your quadcopter in, close the battery door properly, and now you can take off your throttle cutoff. You can give it a little throttle. You'll be in 6G, which is full stabilization. And if you don't do it that way, you're really taking a chance. And one person said you can push these two buttons down with the transmitter off, turn the transmitter on, and it will set everything back to normal. I'm not so sure about that, because when I did it, it put me in 3D, inverted flight mode, which means down is up when you're inverted, and when you're straight up, forward is your power. And so nobody wants to start out in 3D mode, that's for sure. Okay, well, that's about all the tips. If you got any questions, please ask. I'm happy to help anybody I can. By the way, I'm not claiming to be an expert. I'm not. I'm just trying to work with the hobby grade stuff, which is relatively new for me. And so, like I say, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I do have a few insights through trial and error. Okay, thanks. Have a good day and happy flying.